Welcome to the Pitchwerks podcast. I'm Scott McTaggart. Over the last 20 years, I've been a sales rep, a marketer, a manager, an executive, a consultant, and an advisor. This show is designed to give you access to my list of contacts so that you can learn more about how to present your ideas at work and succeed in your career.
Startups and salespeople, marketers and managers from the Epicast Network in Pittsburgh. It's the Pitchwerks podcast.
You'll hear people say it all the time that it is a full-time job. Like when you run a crowdfunding campaign, it is your life and it's more than a full-time job.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. People can understand that when you say it. But
right.
With that, like, it is your entire life because there's nothing else going on, and that your emotional level is dependent on those numbers and how well it's doing, and there's a lot of buildup and anxiety. And
hey everybody, it's Scott. It's Wednesday. It's the Pitchwerks podcast. If all of those things were what you're looking for, then I've got great news. You did everything right. This week we've got Matt Verlinich from Verlinich Labs. Check them out at ClearIce.Rocks or ClearIce.Rocks, actually, if you want to punch it correctly into the address bar. I really appreciate Matt coming in. He's going to give us a master class in what to expect when you choose the crowdfunding option when you're trying to launch your next venture. I know a lot of people, they think this is a thing that they plug it in like eBay. They take a couple pictures, they put a price on there. They're like, okay, we'll give this guy a sticker and that guy gets a t-shirt. Matt is here to dispel all of the crap rumors you've heard. And I do believe that whatever choices you decide to make in terms of funding, you need to know what crowdfunding really is, what it really feels like, how it really goes in practical application. So again, I can't thank Matt enough for coming in. Be sure to check them out again, ClearIce.Rocks. Before we get into the interview, I want to go over a couple really cool news blasts, and I want to do the thing where I nag you. Let's do the cool news blasts first, though. Good news before bad. The first one, good news blast number one, Thrival Festival coming up here in Pittsburgh. There's a Thrival Innovation, which is the 27th and 28th, and then there's Music, which is the 29th and 30th. Innovation is really amazing this year. There are some super high-end people coming in to talk about very high concept. A lot of this has to do with artificial intelligence and its impact on humanity. And because you are one of our listeners, Kenny Chen, Ascender, all those folks over there actually created a coupon code just for you. Type in Pitchwerks, Pitchwerks, and you will get 50% off the cost of your ticket. I really appreciate the guys doing that for us. And if you were thinking about going to innovation, now you have no reason to say no. Next order of business is I am happy to report that Jen Yosef and Mighty, the home improvement startup, asked me to join the advisory board. So thanks to Jen. I want to make sure everybody knows we're going to be working on that together. Pretty cool stuff. Thank you for that. And then, the last bit, sneak up on you, tell you, ratings and reviews on iTunes. Come on, this is how people find this show and figure out whether or not it's good for them. And I really need your help on this. Just this one thing, do it one time, and you never have to do it again. So let's jump into the interview with Matt now that we know that you're going to give us the reviews. I really appreciate him coming in here. This is gold. You've got to know, at least if you're going to turn down the crowdfunding option, why you're doing it. And if you're going to do it, you need to go into it with your eyes wide open. All right, so now we're talking to Matt Verlinich. Matt, Verlinich Labs, LLC, do I have that right?
yes, that is my business.
Are there labs? I need to know.
That's a very good question. So for right now, I was original GM at Tech Shop Pittsburgh. And so that was my dream lab, and that's what I'd ultimately like to build back to.
Nice.
And with Tech Shop's future right now being very uncertain, that's where I've been doing all of the activities out of. That in my house.
Right, yeah.
And in the interim, before something else comes out, I'll probably end up transitioning to my basement lab and like some other friends.
It's aspirational and we'll allow it. That's cool. If there was a lab, I wanted to go. I was totally going to lean on you and be like, now you need to put me in your car and we need to go see the labs. Right? It may not be Bell Labs yet, but we got to get there. Like transistor radio, and we'll get into it anyway.
Yes.
But by way of clarification, update me real quick. Is all of Tech Shop or is it just a local tech shop that is sort of not doing so great? It's hard to tell.
It's a
from
tricky
the outside.
question.
It's tough
like
to tell. Yeah.
Tech shop is not a very lucrative business model, despite the projection that they put out there in the public.
Yeah.
So most locations are not doing that well. It's just they decided to close Pittsburgh, and now they're trying to license off many other locations as they can to alleviate.
Because I knew the intent was to close this one locally here, and you launched your business out of there, so it's a perfect thing. I mean, you used to work there.
Yeah, it's weird because I launched that business. I was like one of the top people to create that business here in Pittsburgh, and then when it came time that I was not growing with that organization anymore, I decided that I wanted to take the skills that I had learned from that and put it towards my own idea.
So we had Olga Pagoda here a few months back.
Love Olga.
Olga's great, yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually Hadley was the first person to
Hadley from Boxy,
yeah, to make the connection. And I watched Boxy spring up from just Joel and Justin, and then watched Hadley come on board, and
God, that takes me back.
Grew out.
Boxy was here for I want to say our 7th episode.
Yeah,
Boxy was just super enthusiastic about Tech Shop, and Joel to this day I think is one of the loudest voices in terms of the opportunity that having one of these maker spaces creates around. It creates such opportunity for people when they know how to build things and make things that there might be demand for.
Yeah, he absolutely has. He started the whole #SaveTechShopPittsburgh and got several articles published.
I got a great Joel story. And I don't mean to take away from your time, but Joel actually, when this all started, he calls me up and he's like, "We have to do an emergency podcast." And I said, "Joel, I'm not 100% sure that's a thing." And he's like, "No, we need to do an emergency Pitchwerks podcast. We need to do one and just basically rally everybody around." I said, "You understand that we've got listeners in," and I'm not joking here, I'm not in Japan and France and Australia, I'm not sure it translates to the international community the way you want it to. But I love his enthusiasm, and honestly, he's right. And that's what I like about it, is that businesses like yours that we're going to talk about, because Verlinich Labs is basically the larger umbrella organization, as I understand it.
Exactly.
But they spring up from opportunities where people learn to manufacture and solve other people's problems. You're making clear ice.
Yeah. So I like to call it an ice tray.
Okay.
So kind of you fill it with water, put it in your freezer, and it works just like people would understand or expect to understand. I always wanted to be an inventor. So I went through my list of ideas and was like, let's see, which one of these can I actually do?
Right.
Having never done this before. And the idea that I settled on that I thought would be the simplest and the most likely to succeed was this idea that came to me while I was watching TV and was just looking at this advertisement for liquor. I don't even remember what liquor it was, but it hit me that I was like, that looks so freaking good.
Okay.
And it was the ice cube that was like, that's crazy. Why have I never seen that? But why can't I get that in my daily life? And
they probably use the glass, but anyway, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's but they exist. And I was like, where do they exist? Ice sculptures. They exist in ice. How do they make ice sculptures? Well, can't make that at home because that's a $15,000 machine that makes a 300-pound block of ice.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, this is a real serious thing that I can do. Is I can come up with a solution that is cost effective enough that people could take this experience, which literally every brand, whether it be, Johnny Walker from Ireland or tequila from Mexico, everybody uses Clear Ice to advertise their product because it has this universal appeal. How do I get this to give somebody the ability to make this in their freezer?
To make their party have the same appeal as the TV commercial that sells how many bottles of Johnny Walker or tequila or whatever we're selling.
Exactly. And so I was just started thinking about it, started experimenting with it, and I knew that I always wanted it to be a tray. I wanted to make a lot of ice because it was never in me to be like, I just want my 2.5-inch sphere so that I can sit and sip my whiskey on the rocks by myself.
Right.
It's like, I wanted something you could pop this thing in the freezer and you can pop out a party or an experience that you could share with your friends and family, and like, it's a great conversation starter.
I was just going to say the conversation value is definitely there.
And I love that, because that's really what I was after with this product, is like, it's not for I mean, it can be for the person who just wants to, enjoy it on their own and like really savor the experience of a scotch or a bourbon. But it's cooler to me to have this like experience that people can share.
The energy level rose when other people were involved.
Yeah.
So a little birdie told me, actually one of the birdies that was on that episode 7 with Boxy, that you actually were participating in pitch competitions. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I participated in this export UPS pitch competition for essentially export credits to ship product overseas. Because of the success of my campaign, I had orders from 56 different countries. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty crazy to, pay $30,000 to ship.
So UPS is in the shipping company, decided to do like a prize for whoever was going to do the most with it?
Yeah, essentially. And so that's the interesting part about any pitch competition, is recognizing who is hosting it and why are they doing
right.
that?
What do they get out of it?
What is their interest? So the whole thing was, just a ploy for them to generate new customers, new businesses. So these are all startups that are.
I have no major objection to you.
No, not at all. It's just that you got to shape your pitch for that audience.
Now we're talking.
Making it appeal to what, like, they don't publish their rubric for how they're going to make their decision.
Okay, I'm not sure I love that. But
but you can back that out.
Right.
Like, back out, what is it? And when you realize, okay, UPS is a shipping company. If I were to ship one package from Pittsburgh to like another country, using FedEx or UPS, it would cost about $180.
Good Lord.
For that package.
And how much does a single unit cost?
$65.
That's what I'm saying, right? I was sitting here going, like, if I'm the buyer, I mean, I love you and everything, but I don't love you that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the value of shipping, it was not worth it.
Exactly. So I couldn't like ship every single one direct to customers, just print out a list of addresses and just
sounds super simple. Yeah.
Yeah. Nope. Not possible. So you have to get into the hairy side of distribution centers and shipping freight to distribution centers, and then paying shipping and handling fees of breaking down and repackaging and distributing out to different regions, and how many different regions around the globe are there, and customs and tariffs.
Now, do you have any training in any of this?
No.
Okay. So like, what did you study?
I went to school for engineering, science, and mechanics.
Okay, so, I mean, you belong in some parts of this, but not the shipping and logistics and distribution center part of it. That, I think, is where a lot of people come from. I don't think a whole lot of people start a business of any type and say, like, well, I deserve to be in this business because of my background in logistics.
Yeah.
Or, boy, I'm really going to be good at the electronics business because of my understanding of international shipping. I don't, and that's not to mock people who are in that business. I actually just think that it's very hard to take any confidence from that as like, this is why I'm going to do great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's important to use your strengths when determining your initial business plan for your product.
Right.
But recognize that you're never going to be able to
to master all the things that affect it.
Yeah, to master all the things before you start the business.
And that's scary, I think, for a lot of people, because they've read the cautionary tales where the thing that somebody didn't know killed the venture.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I didn't know how high taxes were going to be on imported goods into Luxembourg. And as it turns out, that's our key demographic that we were chasing. We're the Luxembourgians, which, by the way, is not how they like to be referred to.
I believe that.
So you get this thing rolling, and I need you to get me more detail on this. So you run an Indiegogo, like a crowdfunding campaign, which I love and I hate, right? I think a lot of people kind of use that as and then we're going to run a crowdfunding campaign. And then they don't have to have any details. They just kind of like leave the rest of the page blank in the business plan. Like, then we'll start a Kickstarter, and then magic happens, and then profit for real. Stage 3, profit, right? And this is, again, something, Olga's into now, but I want to hear your version of it because you went through the palm sweats and the worry about delivering on this. What surprised you? Let's start there. What was the biggest surprise of going through a crowdfunding campaign?
That's a damn good question.
Were there a lot of spikes?
There's a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
So the crazy roller coaster ride that is crowdfunding is you'll hear people say it all the time that it is a full-time job. Like when you run a crowdfunding campaign, it is your life and it's more than a full-time job.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. People can understand that when you say it. But
Right.
with that, like, it is your entire life because there's nothing else going on and your emotional level is dependent on those numbers and how well it's doing. And there's a lot of buildup and anxiety.
That's frightening because of how long it goes on.
Yeah.
So if you're going to agonize for that long and you're going to watch every number and watch who's taking what sort of level of backing and those kinds of things, and it's open for 2 months, that's 2 months worth of antacid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it goes even further than that, too, because even after the campaign ends, that still kind of happens. Like every time I send out a campaign update,
Yeah.
I'll get responses, and sometimes they're great, and
Yeah.
sometimes they're terrible.
Okay.
And it's funny, too, because like I still am good friends with Boxy and Joel and Justin and Hadley, and so they are now like solid 2 years later, still sending out campaign updates. And at some point, your business transitions beyond that. Those are like your early adopters. They can be your true fans. They can be very valuable to you, but they can also be your highest maintenance and highest liability.
Because it's theirs, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're feeling? Is like they take a sense of ownership that a typical customer wouldn't take?
Exactly.
I like the fact that they do feel like they're part of your success, but I don't know that I've ever had anybody state to me, on or off the air, right? The dark side of people feeling as though it's theirs, right? And the closest thing, like you actually sort of tripped this memory of mine of like when bands, and I was younger when I used to think this way, right? But like, oh, that band sold out, right? That band went mainstream, right? It's kind of like that, yeah? There's a certain bit where it's like, you changed it, right?
Absolutely.
You changed it. It's new Coke now. It's not as good, right?
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
cool. I mean, that's a very frank, like I've been there, I've seen it, and this is the part that hurt. On the other hand, though, I have to believe that this is probably not the last time you're going to want to raise money, especially because new products are going to come along or new ideas are going to come to you. Do you feel like you have ammunition when you go in front of an angel investor or a venture capital firm that the truth of the market is on your side?
Absolutely yes.
Oh,
no.
yeah, that doesn't sound absolute.
So, yes, let me qualify that.
I love you, but that was like the weirdest, like, absolutely?
Yeah, you can keep that. I don't care.
Very good, sir.
That's exactly the tone of this answer because yes, absolutely for certain products and certain campaigns, because you have to look at it is like Kickstarter and Indiegogo both have an inherent audience.
Yeah.
And that's the magic that everybody's chasing. They want the newspaper articles of like, I put up a campaign and it made $5 million because they want these people.
I'm rich!
Yeah, they want these people who didn't know about them or their product that come out of nowhere. They've never talked to them, met them before in their life, have just given them money and made them rich.
Yeah, nothing will generate fees on those platforms faster than somebody saying it could happen to you.
Yeah. And so that's the thing that can happen, but it's only whenever you look at who are the people that follow those campaigns and back stuff.
Yeah.
They are early adopters. They're people who want something they've never seen before that's super cool,
Trusting.
new. They have plenty of disposable income. They're willing to just like throw it out there and maybe forget about it and like, oh, they get surprised.
I've done this actually. Something showed up and I went, oh yeah, that's right.
But those are the people who are great. And for a product like mine, which is like a luxury product, an impulse buy, it does something that most people have never seen before. It gives them the power to do it at home. That's cool. that's perfect for them. And it does really well whenever Indiegogo or Kickstarter will start pushing that, because that is my target market. And so for me, it's very valid to go to an angel and say, look, this is my market validation. But whenever you have like the 10 millionth backpack that was on Kickstarter, I mean, it's still somewhat valid, but
it's the old your mileage may vary.
Yeah. The real thing that's different is like, so Tech Shop is, there's a group of members and staff who are trying to save Tech Shop Pittsburgh.
Right.
And in order to do so, they need to raise some money. And they've debated about creating a crowdfunding campaign for it. And Tech Shop has actually ran several crowdfunding campaigns in the past.
Yeah.
And they actually talked to me about running a crowdfunding campaign because I'd ran a smaller one before while I was working there. And I'm just like, this is like not a good idea.
It's way more work and way more intense than you think it is.
Yeah, it's an incredible amount of work. It's very intense, and you're falling into the trap of like hoping that when you put it up there, like strangers will just give you money out of the goodness of their heart for nothing.
Well, I mean, and we were talking, right? Like, so Olga was creating this consulting firm around the idea that it's way more work than people recognize. And I don't know if anybody's still listening, even after, I mean, she's got the miles on the odometer to prove that she knows what she's talking about. And people still, they want to believe that headline you were talking about where it's like, it happened to me. It could happen to you too.
For Tech Shop, it's like it doesn't really make sense to have people from France or Luxembourg chip in and save a local Pittsburgh shop. So it's like it's not going to be a very good idea to try to get on those campaigns and then underestimate the amount of effort that you have to put into like local grassroots efforts.
Well, we also though have to talk about who are you rooting for? I'm totally willing to root for Matt Verlinich, who I don't know, local boy done good.
Yeah.
I am not 100% sure. You remember, and I don't remember how long ago this was. Let's call it 5-6 years ago when I want to say it was Kevin Smith who tried to crowdfund a movie. And Kevin Smith has millions of dollars and he's backed by people who have millions of dollars. And the idea of him sucking all the oxygen out of that environment rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And the fact that you don't need it and you're not the kind of person we root for in this setting.
Yeah.
I wonder how much that blows up in their face as well.
That's a really interesting point. I need to look this campaign up because I actually backed Super Troopers 2.
Oh, did you now?
And they made like $2.75 million.
Yeah.
And like but I think the difference is like Kevin Smith is also kind of like a small independent filmmaker.
Oh, he definitely has that kind of cred, but
the Broken Lizard guys have it, I guess, even more.
I would say
then it like that wouldn't happen.
Kevin Smith made a movie with Bruce Willis in it. That's the end of the story.
That's touche.
Right?
Yes.
As soon as you did, it doesn't matter that he continues to tour the country talking about how much he hates Bruce Willis, which, by the way, is true. He made a movie with Bruce Willis in it and Tracy Morgan.
Yeah.
He did how many other different things that were successful, but I do think part of the magic is you want to root for the team that's launching the product. You want to say like, no, I saw these pictures of these guys and they're doing it in their garage. There's something about that sentence that makes it a more valid use of your money.
That's true. So that's something that's interesting too, because like that's how there's a lot of people going into the crowdfunding space right now to validate products.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people like GE with First Build, and they have like this maker space where they develop new appliances for people, and then they'll launch crowdfunding campaigns for it. And it just doesn't have that same feel.
It's the least punk rock thing you can come up with, right?
Yes. But then at the same time, there's these people like me and some of my even competitors actually who are independent product designers, or as like the more common vernacular would call them, like inventors.
Right. Yeah.
In some cases, so they're like that is that individual type of like message, which is cool. And there is success in running multiple campaigns because you're building a persona and a brand in a very grassroots fashion. The backers for my first campaign will hopefully be happy enough with my performance and the message that I'm building, the brand that I'm building, that they would back my next campaign and share it more. because they feel invested in me and my message, and that helps to build a brand in a very digitally organic way that's like super exciting. And so it's also super tense to think that there's these players who are saturating the field that are like GE, and they're fighting and overcoming like independent product developers, which seems like what the platform is really.
I think the ecosystem protects you on this, though, in the
Yeah.
fact that I do think there is a certain just sort of like revulsion that people have about pretending to need money.
Yeah.
Right. And whether they present it that way or not doesn't matter. The connotation is there. The overlay is like, no, this is for startups who don't have GE's resources. Now, you began to ship product and you said the stress didn't come off just because you were shipping product. And that is an amazing insight there. I want to know more about that part.
Yeah. So it's really interesting trying to come up with the logistics of shipping from China to all kinds of different countries, and to like, I did a pickup party at Wiggle Whiskey a week or two ago.
I'm sorry I missed it. You invited me, but I couldn't make it. I'm sorry.
No worries. That was interesting because that rubs people the wrong way. They're like, well, you have product, but I don't have product. Where's mine? And then if you don't have tracking numbers to like immediately fire off to them, then they're like, well,
yeah,
you.
the scam alert starts to go off. Like, did I get taken?
Yeah, which in some people would think it's a scam alert. Other people, especially more experienced crowdfunding backers, will be like, that is a great sign because they actually have product that they're giving to people.
Yeah, there's product. You just can't have it yet.
Yeah.
Or it's just not physically here yet because this is how this works from here on out. And you demonstrated a level of understanding of the process, which meant you were still very much involved in it. Mm-hmm. The money that you raised didn't get wasted on layer upon layer upon layer of bureaucracy between you and the client.
And that is some of the interesting thing, like that you made a point earlier about the people are so afraid of having that one misstep from something they didn't know that would cause the business to tank. Could have easily made that mistake.
A lot of people do.
Could have easily, and that's what happens a lot of times, especially with bigger campaigns that exceed their goal to a certain degree, but not to the final degree, will end up with too many obligations and not enough capital to fulfill them. And they'll pay for like the tooling that would be required to produce that number of units. And then they run out of money and can't even ship it.
Yeah.
And then they have to take out an enormous amount of debt personally.
Because they obligated themselves and they have to come through.
Or they just give up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it happens more than I'd like to admit. But I mean, let's be honest. People will find you on something more than a sticker. Right. You know, I mean, if it's we already talked about, there's been a couple of times where my mailbox had something in it that I forgot was on its way. But I think if you put anything more than maybe like $30 on your price, you can expect some pretty hot people, and class actions are not hard to come by anymore. Right. You know, people love to organize class actions now. And if I was honestly, I can't believe I'm going to put this idea out into the world. I think it's poison, but I mean, let's just call it what it is, right? If I was a young person in the legal profession trying to figure out what's the next big frontier, I'd be after the Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns where people gave up.
I think you are 100% right, and that is terrifying because that is what will crush innovation. And like,
well, but I mean,
it's this gray area, and this is
hire an accountant and ask people who've done it before. Okay, so let's go back to here. You are just freely giving this information so that people don't end up, in a major problem.
Yeah,
the info's out there.
This is another interesting aspect of that too, though, that the IRS doesn't even really know how they want to classify this.
I'm sure because it could be investment. It could be because you are kind of buying a product, but you're also kind of starting a business. Which is it a donation? You don't get stock out of the deal.
Yeah.
You don't get the profit share. What do we call this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the first accountants that I worked with were so freaking old school. They were like, the first 2 or 3 times I met with them, they're like, but are you sure they don't own any of your business? Oh my God. I was like, you've never seen or heard of it, have you? You've never seen
even if they have, that doesn't mean they'd understand it.
It's true.
I mean, I'm sitting here and I've heard about it for years and years and years. And I'm sitting here still trying to figure out exactly what I would tell them to do.
So from my understanding of how the whole ecosystem evolved, was basically Indiegogo was the first one on the scene, and it's like 2007-ish. They basically came about to help organize small creative projects, whether it's like a small musician who wants to record like a couple of CDs, or a t-shirt shop, or a play, things like that are like very, very artistic and like have like a punk rock indie
There's a community behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't designed to be like this mega audience of millions of people where we're going
to launch the iPhone on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it kind of grew and grew and grew, and then Kickstarter came out and started to like push it into other realms, and there was a few hardware products that came out and they really killed it on Kickstarter. Yeah. Like the Glyph and then the Pebble Watch. Mm-hmm. And those were the things that were like, oh my God, I can use this to become an inventor.
This lets me check those boxes we were talking about as far as what investors are looking for.
This is another implication that people don't realize, which is important. So if you launch a campaign as yourself, you are personally, financially, legally liable.
Right.
But if you launch it as a business, like an LLC, then it's that shell of protection.
Yeah, you've got the liability shield because it's not you doing it, it's the company doing it.
And also the accounting protection too.
Yeah.
Because like I got a big payout check at the end of last year, like $70,000 for the first part of my campaign. And it's like, well, it was written to you with your social security number. Where's our money?
Yeah. Matt Verlinich, thanks for coming into the Pitchwerks podcast. I really appreciate the insights you gave us this week.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Scott. It was a blast.
All right, everybody, that is all the time we've got this week. We kind of pushed the limit a little bit this week, trying to squeeze a lot in. You know where to find us if you need us. All the social channels are open. Operators are standing by. PITCHWERKS. LinkedIn company page, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Hit us up. Tell us what it is that we can do for you. One of the things we're going to be doing for you is putting together next week's show. That's about 7 days away. We hope you'll join us for that. Take care of yourselves in the meantime.
The Pitchwerks podcast comes to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a production of the Epicast Network and McTaggart, LLC. Engineering and production by Buzzy Torek and Nick Miller. For more information, show feedback, and ad sales, visit pitchwerks.com. pitchwerks.com. On social media, find and follow the show on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram using that same brand name, PITCHWERKS.